It's Kyle here, and it's time to talk about the series finale of Andor, episodes 10, 11, and 12 of Season 2. Obviously, this review will include spoilers, so if you haven't watched those episodes yet, please don't watch this review. Go watch those first, and then come back and watch my review of them. So without more away, let's get started talking about these three amazing episodes and how they've wrapped up Andor. And like my previous reviews of Andor this season, because they're releasing them in these 3-episode batches, I'm not going to really do individual episodes. Just going to talk about my overall thoughts of the story arc over the 3 episodes. I'm not going to try to break them down by episode. And I think in this case, it'd be really hard to, because this 3-episode arc, definitely the storyline just runs straight through these 3 episodes. There's not really much of a breakup. It's really one compact story, amazingly well done. So we start off episode 10. Some high intensity situations right away. Lonnie issues kind of a emergency call to Luthen for an emergency meetup, and this is like the level of apparently this is like, you know, the last ditch, like, you have to meet me now. He's never done this before, so they know this is really serious. And you even can tell when you see the scene and Lonnie's like leaving the ISB and he's like looking over his shoulder to see he's being followed, and he's not being subtle at all. You know, like, oh, he is rattled. He is not being a good age at this moment. He's very obvious that he's nervous. He's trying to sneak away. Something serious is going on. So we have this meetup with Lonnie and Luthen, which is an amazing scene. Both actors did amazing in this scene. It was, wow. It was one of my favorite scenes in this whole 3-episode arc. And Lonnie basically lays out that he has stolen Deidre's kind of security clearance, saying he's been able to access her files. He's had this for a year, but he didn't want to let Luthen know, because he knew once Luthen found out, he'd pressure him to use it immediately. But Lonnie was kind of saving it for when he thought was the most appropriate time. And the day before, Lonnie got a tip that Deidre was getting ready to do a tactical team raid on a high-value target, and Lonnie thinks this is going after Luthen. So he decides to use his clearance now, and that's when he finds out all this information that Deidre has been gathering that relates to the Death Star. And it's like, you know, basically Lonnie's like, hey, this everything we've been trying to figure out what the Empire's been doing all these years, this is the answer. Gorman, what's going on Jeddah with Kyber crystals, everything that we've been trying to figure out, what is the Empire doing, it all relates to this massive weapon program. And you get this great interaction between Luthen and Lonnie where, you know, Luthen's kind of promising Lonnie his safety for him to tell more stuff. He's like, hey, this is so serious, we're both going to run. Yavin is where we'll go. You know, he's trying to ease Lonnie's concerns so he can get all the information. But then, you know, the next scene we see Luthen walking away by himself, and we go to the bench where they were, and you see Lonnie has been killed by Luthen. And I think this just kind of shows you the type of rebel that Luthen is. One, you know, he knows Lonnie is a loose end. And I think he's always had some doubts about Lonnie's abilities, and I think he's really afraid Lonnie's going to get caught. And if Lonnie gets caught, this information he's found, the Empire will quickly figure out what he knows, and all the other stuff that he knows that maybe could take down this network. Lonnie's too high of a risk. I think he also, being an Imperial agent, I think Luthen might think it's going to be really hard to get Lonnie out of here. Maybe it's almost better I do a mercy and take him out. But in reality, I think it's Luthen. Everybody's expendable except one person's life, and that's Clea. And I think this sets up this beautiful in this episode where we were getting these flashbacks from Luthen of how he met Clea, and both how they became involved in the rebellion and what their motivation is to fight against the Empire. And it was amazingly done. I think if you had told me before this arc, one of the episodes we're going to get flashbacks from Luthen, I was like, I don't know if I really want Luthen flashbacks. We can dedicate the precious amount of time we have in these episodes to something else, either related to Andor or Mothma. I'm glad my advice was not sought, because these flashbacks were amazingly well done. Really rounded out Luthen's character a lot more than I think I'd ever expected this show to do in the wrap up. And also, I really showed why he cared so much about Clea, why it was the one person he could be honest with, and like the one person he couldn't sacrifice, and basically probably the only agent I think he would be willing to sacrifice himself for so she could get away. I don't think Luthen would have sacrificed himself for Cassian to get away, or Vel, or even honestly Mon Mothma. I think it came down between her and Luthen. I think Luthen would be like, I might be more important actually. But Cleia is the one person he has this connection to that I think he cannot risk her falling into Imperial hands, which we quickly see when they come together. He's basically briefing her, hey, this is what I learned, memorize it, memorize it, memorize it. And I don't think she's really understanding why he's making her memorize it until he says, like, all right, I'm going back to the shop to destroy the radio. You know, this is what you need to do. And I think that's when she realizes, like, oh, he's going to take all the risk, and he basically is probably going to get caught, and he's making sure I get away to tell the rebellion what we've learned from Lonnie and the ISB about the Death Star. And again, these flashbacks make this so much more of an impactful scene when you know what their history is together. You know, it outlines everything, you know, from Luthen basically finding her as a kid in a war-torn situation, awful situation, you know, and they basically kind of come together as, you know, basically individuals with nothing left, no connections, and they become, you know, everything to each other. During one of the situations, Luthen says, you know, she's his daughter, and he asks, oh, is that what I am for you now? It's like, you are whatever I need you to be. Like in some situations, you're going to be my daughter. I think it also means you're going to be my friend, my confidant. We are everything for each other now. And we basically see how they kind of grow up and kind of start their rebel cell. Very, very interesting. And like again, it makes all these present day scenes between those two so much more impactful now. But we see then Luthen at his shop, and while he's destroying the radio, sure enough, the Empire is here, and we see Dedra. And so their interaction in this situation was wow. I love the fact that when she comes in, she tries to play it off like, hey, I'm just a customer. And Luthen really knows you're not really a customer. We both know, we kind of each other know what's going on. But we're going to play this scene out and just see what happens, see what each other of us knows. And when she puts down the Starpath unit, it's, you know, you can see Luthen go like, all right, there's no way I'm going to get it. I'm not going to be able to talk myself out of this. But I think he already kind of knew that, because when she asked, like, is there anything in this gallery that's not real, that might be a fabrication, he goes and pulls this one artifact, and who knows if it actually is one of those things that he wasn't sure if it's real or not, but it just happens to be a knife. I think he knew, I might need this in a minute. Let me come up with a reason to show this to her where she's not going to get suspicious and not try to take this weapon away from me. Masterfully well done on his part. And she was just like so enraptured by, like, I've outsmarted you, I've caught you, that she's not really even clocking her head like, hey, he has a knife in his hand. Maybe I should take that away from him and not give it back to him. But it didn't really clear it. Like, she's like, I've caught him. Everything's done now. What I've been working on for all these years is finally paid off. But their interaction after, you know, like, they basically drop their character acts, and, you know, both know, like, all right, yes, I'm a rebel agent. You know, I'm here to catch you, type of thing. And when she says, like, you're all about chaos, the thing that flashed in my mind at that point is, like, you know, you were just in charge of Gorman. You know, basically made that massacre happen. Everything about that situation was chaos. The Empire does not care about order. They just care about control. So in reality, where she accuses Luthen, everywhere you go, you cause chaos, it's not Luthen that's calling the chaos. It's the Empire. It's Dedra. It's goes to Gorman, massacre. She goes to Ferrix and sets up a situation that leads to this riot, that leads to chaos in Ferrix, that almost gets her killed. She causes the chaos in Gorman that causes this massacre that gets her boyfriend killed. Everywhere she goes, she causes chaos in the quest for control. And she, even at the last, she doesn't understand that. I love how Luthen lays out, like, hey, you're too late. The rebellion is no longer here. It's outgrown me. You can arrest me now, but it's not going to stop the rebellion. You're too late. And then that's when she notices the smoke in the back from where Luthen had been destroying the radio at the moment, before she came in. And when he turns around, I'm like, oh, I think I know what's going to happen. And sure enough, she notices his hand dropping, there's blood, and you realize he has stabbed himself to commit suicide. And that's when you see Dedra basically lose control. It's the first time she feels like she's been completely rattled in this situation. Really since the Gorman massacre, when after that she seems like she's rattled. You get that same thing now where she's like, oh, I've screwed up. And that's when we later learn this entire raid was off the books. She wasn't supposed to be doing it. She'd scheduled it on the day that the agent actually in charge was his day off, so she could kind of get the credit for finally capturing Axis. Luthen is rushed to the hospital. We see them trying to save his life, and it's looking dim. And at the hospital, basically, Deidre is arrested because she was basically breaking all this ISB protocols just to seize the guy. And she didn't send a team in to seize him, which she could have easily done, and Luthen could have been captured alive. No, she had to do this big dialogue with him, and basically savor her moment of finally capturing this person she's been after all these years, and it led to her downfall. And for a character that was so well acted, but also such an awful evil person in so many ways, it was amazing to kind of see her like, oh, I have screwed up. I am in serious trouble. I'll go ahead and finish out her storyline. I love that when she's in the basement and Krennic comes and basically interrogates her, and she realizes when the cameras are cut off, she's like, uh-oh, this is not normal. And then when he comes in, I think she realizes, like, why is he here? She's trying to process. This has to be more than about Axis. And then when she quickly figures out it's about these files that she's been quietly stealing away from other Imperial sources that she wasn't supposed to be knowing about, that she knows about the Death Star, and basically her knowing about this and not coming forward that she had this info basically has sealed her fate. And she realizes she means nothing to the Empire. Nothing she's done is mean to them. She's completely disposable, and her career, in some ways her life, is completely over. But Krennic, the way he dominates her in that interrogation scene was wow. It really makes you think more about all those other scenes early in the season where she was interrogating and torturing people, and now to see her in that situation is very much very much what she deserved. And again, just to wrap up her storyline, when we get to the end of the episode, at the end of the series, and we get the little scenes of where everybody's at, and you see her in an Imperial prison, and you go like, oh, perfect end to that character, that she's now in the place where she's probably put countless of innocent people. She's there and she deserves to be there. It's very much justice served. Now back to the hospital, and Luthen and Clea basically, she sees him being taken to the ambulance, and she's like, all right, if he's still alive, Luthen does not want anything he knows to get out there. So she knows what she has to do. Even though as much he means to her, she knows what needs to be done. So the entire scenario where she figures out how to break into the hospital, how to get on the restricted floors, loved it. Almost felt like we're in a heist movie at this point. Her stealing the nurses' outfits, figuring out how to get a patient and use that to get as close to the restricted floors as possible, and then how to get on the restricted floor, her setting off the bombs to distract the stormtroopers and get as many of them away as possible before she goes in and kills a couple Imperial agents to get to Luthen was so well done, and shows what kind of agent she actually is. And I love the part after this is wrapped up where the Imperials think like, oh, it had to be like a team of 3 or 4 people to do all this stuff. In reality, it's just her, and it shows you how good she is at her job and how well Luthen trained her. But you have this very tender moment with her in Luthen's room, but very quickly when she knows, I know what needs to be done, and she disconnects him from the machine that's keeping him alive, and he quickly passes away. And you really know, if Luthen had been conscious, he basically said, like, this is what needs to be done. I think in some ways he'd be proud that she was able to make that sacrifice, and basically sacrifice Luthen. I think that's what Luthen would have wanted. I think he'd been so proud that, like, she was willing to put away everything they built together just to keep their secrets. I think that's what Luthen would have wanted. They were so focused on their rebellion. I think he would not have wanted her to try to save his life or sneak her out. He would have wanted her to end his life, so everything that he knew died with him. But then we get her back at the safe house, and she's trying to make contact with, I don't know if it's just specifically the radio is with all agents or just specific agents, but she ends up getting contact with Yavin, and that's how Cassian finds out. And even though he's not given permission, him and K2 and Melchi go on this secret mission that even the rebels don't know Yavin what they're up to basically, they think they're going to rescue Luthen. They don't know it's Clea until they get there. But then you get the entire situation with the drama of, like, who's going to get there first? The Imperials who've been able to track the radio signal, or Cassian and his team. Didn't know how it was going to play out, because really, because we don't see Clea in future episodes, we don't like, all right, are the Imperials going to get there first? What's going to happen? Or do Cassian get to them, but during their escape, is she killed? So the tension was very high to this entire thing. The way K2 came in and saved the day was amazing. The way that Cassian and Melshi basically convince Clay, hey, you need to come back with us with Andor. This is what Luthen want. You need to live. There's still a rebellion going on. Don't give up. Come join us on Yavin. This is what Luthen would want. Keep the rebellion alive. You'll be a hero. You can do so much more to help us out. Of course, she's injured in the raid, and so they have to take her out that way. But everything that K2 did in this situation was absolutely amazing. K2 in this arc was amazing. So many funny interactions, but when he had to fight, he really showed you what he was capable of. And then we get back to Yavin, and then Cassian obviously is in a lot of trouble for basically going off this unapproved mission because he's basically putting everything at Yavin at stake, risking all this base they built, just to go save Luthen, which the other rebels just don't like Luthen. He's been a thorn in their side. We get this amazing scene where Cassian's briefing the rebel leadership, and other than Mon Mothma, everybody else at that table is basically completely opposed to what Cassian did, even Bell. And I love the line where Bell asks, well, when's the last time you even talked to Luthen? How much do you really know what he's been going on? And Cassian, it's been a year. But it was when I was sent to save Mon Mothma, and Bell has all right, touche. Good point there. Luthen did something really good there. But basically, this is when Cassian basically briefs the rebel leadership on what Luthen learned from the ISB about the Death Star project. And this is where we begin really see how this episode is leading directly into the events of Rogue One. And the rebel leadership is very much divided on, do we believe what Cassian's saying? Not that Cassian be lying, but was Luthen fed bad info? ISP actually already knew about him, and they were feeding him info that they wanted the rebels to know. This is just a big trap to catch the rebels. They're very suspicious. But Mon really wants to believe, so she sends Vel to talk to Cassian to kind of get her opinion. Vel has so much respect for Cassian, she doesn't even try to trick. She's just let's just talk about what you learned. And I think she definitely gave a recommendation to Mon, hey, Cassian is legit. He fully believes this. I have no reason to suspect that Luthen was feeding him bad info. This is the real thing, and it's too high stakes not to at least check it out. And there's other little pieces of info that the rebels have been getting that kind of leads them there might be something to this. So Mon really goes and tries to convince Bell, because he seems like the key decision maker in this process, that she could get him on his side. The rest of the council will go their way, and they convince him. So much so, I think Bell has the line. He's when Cassian, why are you giving permission? She's if I'm going to fight the Empire, I want to go out fighting. At that point, he realized we're at the point where we need to start doing something. We need to take direct action. Maybe building the secret base. We've reached the point where we're ready to take the next step. And if this info is true, we can't risk tracking it down. And then we see this mind-blowing scene. I love the scene of Cassian basically getting in his outfit from Rogue One and kind of walking out of the base to a ship to basically go to where we see him at the beginning of Rogue One, and just him walking in that Rogue One costume, sharing looks with people that we've met over the course of this series, was what a way to end the series, and also kind of show where all the characters we've met on the way are at this point. So well done. A great way to kind of wrap up this storyline. There was one part I did forget. I wanted to touch base on with Partagaz. That basically this has led to his downfall as well, and he kind of knows it. And while he's waiting, basically for people to come get him from the Empire, he's listening to Nemik's manifesto. I love that that manifesto came back. It's such a way to kind of wrap up this series, to hear those words again before Partagaz basically mentions we've tried to contain this like a disease and this is spread and we can't. We saw him in season 1 where he's our job is to stop the disease. It's basically how he came admitting we failed. We couldn't stop the disease, and there's no way to stop the disease. And that's before he commits suicide. But before he basically meets the same fate as Dead Dread by going to Imperial prison. Sorry, I did that part with Partagaz a little bit out of order, but I realized right when I was wrapping up, I forgot to talk about Partagaz. I really need to touch on that. Then the very last scene, Cassian and K2 is not the last thing we see. Then we get this really beautiful way to end the show, where we see Bix. She's went back to the farming planet, and I saw the farming planet's name is just flown out of my mind. I'm not going to look at it right now, but she's back on that planet, and we see her walking through the fields, and we see she's holding a baby. And we know obviously it's been a year since she's separated from Andor, and I think everybody's quickly like, oh, this is Cassian's child. Him and Bix have had a child together, which you wonder, does Cass even know that she has a child with him? That's not known. I have a feeling if he knew, I'm not sure if he'd still be with the rebellion. I think that maybe there's a reason why Bix left. I think initially, those last episode arcs, Bix was kind of leaving, basically like she was saying, like, you're so important to the rebellion. If I stay around, you're not going to be able to fully give yourself to rebellion, and this is so important. I think you need to do that. I think now, knowing what we do, I think she knows, like, oh, I'm pregnant, and once Cassian finds out, there's no way he's going to be staying with the rebellion if he knows that I'm going to have his child. He'll want to keep me safe, keep his child safe, and he is so important. I basically have to sacrifice and leave so he'll stay with the rebellion and do what the galaxy really needs him to do. I think some people might find this cheesy and like, do we really need this? It's just such a cheesy way to end this show. And Andor is definitely not cheesy by any means. A series, so it feels a little bit out of theme for the way the rest of the show went. I will disagree with that opinion, because I think this really wraps up what the show is saying rebellions are all about, and that is hope. And I think Bix with Cassian's baby is basically like, this is the hope for the next generation. This is hope for people continue to live their life, find a way to make connections, have family, fall in love, hope for the next generation. Everything that the Empire is against, Bix with that baby is basically the exact opposite. And this is kind of in some ways what Cassian is fighting for, even if he doesn't know he's fighting for. He's fighting for the next generation to be able to live in a galaxy without the Empire. And I think there's a perfect way to sum this up, that this is what the rebellion is about. It's all about what's next, what's the future, and the hope for the future, that we can have a better future. They were leaving the galaxy a better place than we found it. I think everything that the rebellion is and should be about. And I think it was a beautiful way to end the show. Also, when it wrapped up, I was like, that was an emotional gut punch, because you know what Cassian is giving up, even if he doesn't know he's actually giving it up. What he is giving up via his sacrifice in Rogue One makes it even more powerful. Even if he just knows Bix is out there, him just choosing to give that up, to go on that mission, because he realizes, Bix won't be safe. This is not a galaxy that Bix should be living in if I don't do something to try to stop this Death Star. And it becomes even more powerful when you know that there's also a child involved. So, amazing way to end this show. There was nothing in this episodes that I would really complain about. My only minor complaint, and this is something I had about the series the entire time, is episodes where Mon Mothma wasn't in it a lot. I always wanted to see more Mon Mothma. It's not like I wanted to take other stuff out, but could they not have figured out a way to fit in like a 3 to 5 minute scene with Mon Mothma? I would have loved in this arc if we'd had maybe 1 or 2 scenes to show why Mon Mothma is important to the Rebel Alliance on Yavin. Obviously, we saw why she's so important in her speech to the Senate. That really kind of motivates the rebellion to come together, makes the Rebel Alliance even stronger. But in this episode arc, you just kind of see her part of a council, and it doesn't really seem like her opinion is any more important than the other people at the table, which I think was Mon Mothma's all about. She's not trying to be the dictator of the rebellion. But I think it'd been really a great way to end her storyline in this series, a nice character arc to kind of show why she's important to the rebellion now, and maybe give her some big speech in front of the council, or something to the soldiers, something that would, is continuing to motivate the Rebel Alliance, or showing the value of her leadership skills. And we just don't really see that a lot in this episode arc. She's not really given a whole lot to done. She's barely in it more than Bail Organa, which I love all the stuff that Bail has in this episode arc. But I would have liked to see 1 or 2 more scenes with Mon Mothma, basically showing why she's so important. Why was it so important that Cassian got her away from the Imperial Senate into the Rebel Alliance, and why she's so important to the future success of the Rebel Alliance. And I think these 3 episodes really did a good job of showing that. And like always, like all the episodes, I just would have loved to see more Mon Mothma content. So throughout the series, anytime we had an episode where she was hardly in it or not in it, I was like, could we not have got 1 or 2 scenes with Mon Mothma in this? But that was my only complaint about this, the last 3 episodes. in the last 3 episodes were still absolutely amazing. I would not have taken anything out that was in these episodes. I just would maybe have added 1 or 2 scenes with Mon Mothma in it. So that's my opinions on the finale of Andor. I know this is a long review, so apologize for that if I had to get all my thoughts out there. I hope everybody enjoyed the series as much as I did. This was absolutely amazing. I think it's definitely changed what people kind of think is possible with Star Wars. Absolutely love it. I think it's great that Star Wars has so much going on now. You have Andor being, the perfect example of prestige TV. But then you just had Skeleton Crew, which I had so much fun with, which like, Star Wars Goonies. It was amazing, so much fun. The Mandalorian is obviously more the Mandalorian is obviously a completely different series than Andor, but still amazing. I think it shows like Star Wars can do a lot of different type of content. It doesn't have to be one thing, and it still can be awesome at a lot of different things. So kudos to everybody involved in Andor. Y'all knocked it out of the park. This is maybe some of the best Star Wars content, if not the best Star Wars content ever produced. I am bummed the series is over. I'm looking forward to the rumors, hopefully they're true, that some episodes of Andor will be released next year in the movie theaters, in addition with Rogue One to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of that film. And I'm definitely looking forward now to going back and rewatching the entire series of Andor and then going straight into Rogue One, because wow, this was an amazing series. Thank you, Star Wars, so much for giving this to us. So in the comment section below, just let me know, what was your favorite part about Andor? Was it a character, a moment, whatever? I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, hit the like button. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time, and may the Force be with you.